And now for some reaction from the United States, RT's Dina Gusovsky joins us from Washington, D.C. Hello to you, Dina. Big news today. So what is the reaction to Mr. Obama's announcement there in the United States?
Well, this is really quite shocking news. No pre-warning, no rumors. The Americans really keeping everybody in suspense. But just moments ago, Secretary of Defense Robert Gates did announce that he's going to scrap that program in Poland and the Czech Republic, the very same program that he himself recommended to his former boss, George W. Bush, back in December of 2006. Now, I can't emphasize enough, this really marks the first real change from the Obama administration, from the Bush administration, when it comes to U.S. foreign policy. Now, throughout his campaign, Barack Obama was always saying that he's willing to reconsider such programs, but when he stepped into that White House, all eyes were on him, and people really thought, you know, he's going to keep this program in Eastern Europe. But today we find out that program is no more. But the question is, what is going on behind the scenes? Who's making these decisions in Washington, D.C.? Who's making all these phone calls? Well, joining me in the studio today, Wayne Madsen, RT contributor and investigative journalist. So first of all, I want you to take us behind the scenes. You know, this is really a shocking announcement. What is going on in Washington, D.C., and what does it mean for Barack Obama to make this decision, this bombshell, some would say?
Well, we heard that when President Obama first came to office, we heard this term resetting U.S.-Russian relations. I think this is a major reset. And many people.
But do you think that he had this planned from the beginning? Because it doesn't seem like that. It seems like it was all political rhetoric at the beginning. You had the plastic reset button. That's all fine and dandy. But nothing really had changed. And then all of a sudden, we get this announcement. So talk about the timing there, then. Do you think that this is something that he had planned to do from the very beginning?
Well, this comes right after Russia agreed to allow the United States to use Russian airspace to resupply Afghanistan. Obviously, that there was a quid pro quo there. We're also looking at negotiations, direct negotiations with Iran, which the people who advocated this missile defense shield said, well, it's Iran is really the target here, not Russia. Nobody believed that at the time. But I think with a lot of these things going on right now, the quid pro quo for the overflight rights over Russia, direct negotiations with Iran, I think this is basically a message by Obama that, hey, it's not business as usual, as we found, you know, as we got so used to during the Bush administration. This is a new administration, but it takes a long time to stop a lot of things. I would say that really what's going on, too, at the Pentagon is the de-Rumsfeldization of the Pentagon. Even though Gates advocated the system, this money was already in the pipeline. Rumsfeld was the head of a commission back in the 80s on missile defense. He never met a missile defense system he didn't like. So this is really another step to basically purge the Pentagon of those people who were big Rumsfeld advocates.
Well, there's a lot of players here in Washington, D.C. I'm glad you mentioned Robert Gates. I mean, is he kind of just basically going by what Barack Obama is saying? He's saying, look, I have to make this kind of decision. I have to untangle these knots, whether it be with Russia, whether it be with Iran. So is he kind of just being a yes man here? I mean, he's the one that suggested that this program, you know, go forward in the first place. Isn't that kind of a little twist on things?
Well,
here?
if we go back to when Gates first became Secretary of Defense, he was the non-Rumsfeld. That was very unpopular with Dick Cheney. He was the non-neocon. So I'm not sure they had to twist his arm all that much, because he really represents more the old George H.W. Bush group of people rather than the George W. Bush people. So I don't think he went into this opposed to the idea. And I think we also have to look at the fact that the Czech Republic and Poland, heavily influenced by the neoconservatives, the former defense minister of Poland, Sikorsky, who basically advocated this agreement was made on his watch, is now the foreign minister, used to be a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. His wife's on the editorial board of the Washington Post. So this is a real message to the neocons too, that your old policies don't have any place in the Obama administration as far as when it comes to Europe.
So then how do the Poles and the Czechs feel? Because is this something like, okay, Barack Obama made this phone call, and so they're saying, okay.
Well, this was
because they had to, maybe depended on this. I mean, they had thought this program was going to move forward, at least under George W. Bush, for sure.
We're going to hear some belly aching. I think the Czechs, this was very unpopular in the Czech Republic. There were demonstrations against this shield. I think they're probably somewhat breathing a sigh of relief that they don't have to worry about this. The Poles, on the other hand, put a lot of political capital on this shield. They're probably going to be a little vocal about it, but I think, and the Baltic countries as well. But I think when all is said and done, the European Union is looking at this as, look, this was like a Cold War machination here, and it's good that we're now stepping back and not going to the brink in Cold War type brinksmanship.
Well, people did say that George W. Bush, some of his policies kind of tended to divide Europe, and that he had done that, perhaps on purpose, perhaps not. But then with this decision, is the rest of Europe going to kind of look at Obama differently? Is he going to look weak to some players and look very smart and kind of progressive to others? And how important is that on the world stage? Well,
I think it is important, especially as he's getting ready to go to the UN and G20 in Pittsburgh, where he'll be meeting President Medvedev. At least he has something now to bring to the table.
And what is that going to look like now that this decision has been made?
Well, I think there's going to be more cordiality, because this is this missile defense shield was a big stumbling block in U.S.-Russian relations. As far as, remember, Rumsfeld called these old Europe. I think old Europe is looking at this as like, hey, there's now adult supervision in Washington for a change. New Europe, we'll hear some complaints, but I think they'll be very mooted, and I don't think we'll see much. Maybe the Poles put a lot of capital on this, but I think by and large, all of Europe is going to say, let's move forward, and this is resetting the clock forward quite a bit rather than resetting it backwards.
Well, thank you so much for being here and for your insight as always. We will continue to follow reaction here in Washington, D.C. and all the latest news about this. But for now, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Dina. We'll definitely get back to you as the story develops. That was RT's Dina Gusovsky. Thank you very much.